Okay, how to change the pins on a T750, T770, T300. I think the T300s are the same. So real quick, I just finished it up. The way that these things work, essentially you have a pin that goes through, well, you can see it. It's right down in here. That's the pin. Goes all the way through to this bolt. Or the bolt goes actually through the pin. So, and there's inside your Bobcat, there's a sleeve. So here's how this assembly works and comes apart. Basically, to get it apart, gosh, sorry for the exposure, guys. Well, you guys need to see this, not me. So to get it apart, you have to take off these bolts. Then you, once you get the bolts out, the pin should just, or the bolt, take off the nut, for crying out loud, I'm sorry. Then bang the bolt out, and once the bolt comes out, you take, we had just a, you have to get something that will basically sit on the end of this pin, and you basically put just any sort of thing, a socket or something, to get on the end of that pin, and then you hammer it out. We were using that sledgehammer on some of it. We were using the post hole hammer, and you can pound that pin out. Once you get the pin out, the whole unit will drop down. Of course, you also have to take the two pins off the cylinder up top. And then the cylinder also has, right here, it has sleeves. Now, I want to mention to you real quick, inside these sleeves, you got your grease zert, and there's a little hole. My sleeves on the inside of that, cylinder ring here, my sleeves had spun, so I couldn't pump grease in because the hole in the sleeve was misaligned. Someone at the Bobcat shop told me you can drill them, but you're going to screw your threads up for your zert. So, and they're not too hard to pound out, actually. What was kind of difficult, but not tremendously, was getting the sleeves out of the Bobcat, but actually that wasn't too hard. So I'm going to go through real quick and just show you what we did. So we took these two lower pins out, and then I was like, crap, how am I going to get the sleeves out? The way the sleeves come out, oh, and by the way, the very first thing you got to do is you got to get the caps out of here. How did I get the caps out? You know what I did? Once I got these bolts, the nut off the end, we just put a long screw in there and just started pounding the daylights out of that. And the bolt itself will push the cap out. And I mean, you got to pound it. I mean, we were smacking it. We had our face gear on because you don't want a piece of that sledgehammer breaking off, going through your, it'll go through your face if you hit it hard enough, a little piece of metal. But anyway, so we pounded it until that cap came out. Then we could get access to pull the pins out. And then once I got it out, I had that sleeve in there. How are you going to get that sleeve out? Because it was wore out. I don't know if I showed you on this take. I did another take a second ago. Look at how wore out that thing is. I mean, you can see right there, like right there is the, it's not supposed to be concave right there. It's supposed to look straight like that, but it had wore completely, like that's a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch almost. This thing was super, super sloppy. And the pins, or the sleeves themselves on the inside, they were wore down to nothing. I mean, a little bit of the Bobcat took a little bit of a hit, but what I did, I fired up the cutting torch, and you know, I was real nervous about using it. I'm not much of a welder, but I can do it a little bit. I fired it up and I cut, and oh, and one thing to note, the sleeve goes, now listen to this carefully, the sleeve goes in from the outside, and there's a little stopper ring right in here, okay? It's about right where you see this plate, it's right in about that depth. So when you're cutting down in there, and you got to make a couple cuts to cut that sleeve out, and I wish I had, here, I'll just kind of show you. It was kind of like this, and so I was cutting, I had it all turned up to the side, and so I was cutting 1, 2, and 3, but unfortunately, just a little bit further down there, you'll see a line, and I didn't know what that line was, and I kept on cutting. I was cutting into the Bobcat and cutting in the stopper ring. It was no big deal. I took my wire feed welder and I just filled in the gap. Man, it's not going to hurt anything, and then filed it down inside there. It was fine. So anyway, we hit 3 cuts on each, 1, 2, 3. The old sleeve popped right out. And then, you know, the Bobcat shop is going to use a press, But man, you just line it up and you tap it with a hammer and go round and tap, 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 tap. That sleeve will go right in there. And then once I got it started, I ended up using this post hole, and man, I just pounded it right down, pam, 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 and had some grease, and it just went right in there. Now, I will just say, you can use grease on the bottom pins, but remember, I wasn't too into using grease on those top pins because I don't want to encourage the outside to spin it all. I used a little soapy water on that. So anyway, once we got the sleeves out, tapped the new sleeves in, got it placed, and then here was another trick. The bushings, just as a side note, in case your Bobcat shop's closed because you're doing it on the weekend, if you've got those little, not bushings, but gaskets, which are half brass and half metal and half rubber, the metal part goes to the inside, the rubber part goes to the outside. I don't know if you can see it. That's it right there, but you can't see how they're placed. The side that has the rubber goes to the outside. The side that's lipped over and has the metal goes toward the inside, toward the Bobcat, toward the sleeve. So once you get the sleeves tapped in there, set it back in, and then here's one other thing that I discovered, is that it was very tight with those pins, but it wasn't a big deal. It was a thousandths or two off, and it tapped in with a sledge, which I was happy about. The last thing, be real careful, because once you start tapping those things in, you want to make sure that you seat that cone in there nice and tight, or seat the pin into the cone. You don't just use the drill and just and bang it in. Yeah, it may not suck it all the way in. Once you get it in, tap it again. Man, make sure that thing is all the way in there, because otherwise you're going to unscrew your bolt and your big problems. You're going to cut your pin, or you're going to cut your bolt. So seat it in tight, and that's really it, guys. That's the way that thing works. I know that I'm missing something, guys. I know that you're going, oh, but what about this? Man, sorry. I tried to include every single thing that I knew. You know, as far as that's the exact way I did it. Here are my grease caps that came out right there. And I'm sorry I don't have whatever question that you just asked that I didn't answer. I'm sorry, but I tried to get this kind of just as thorough as possible. Guys, honestly, this is not rocket science. It's not the hardest job in the world. You're just banging a lot of things in and out. Make sure you have lots of little basic. Oh, and by the way, this is what I used for banging these out, which was my old pins from the upper. It was the old pins from the upper that I used. But you need just lots of little round things that are, here they are right here. These are the old ones, and you can see I kind of banged the edge of them and got them a little flared out there. Oh, and then these were some other round things. I don't even know what we use these for, but that was it. All right, take it easy, guys. Bye-bye.